Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Get Fresh with Consent. We are on episode 2 in season 2. My name is Sid.
And I am Ella.
We're here today with our friend
Ben.
Yeah. So, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit, Ben, so the audience knows?
Yeah, sure.
Who we're talking to?
My name is Ben. I do a lot of work with men and women in the construction industry, primarily around kind of supporting people to be the safest and best versions of themselves, whether that's in relation to their mental health or in relationships or around drug and alcohol misuse. Those are kind of the typical things. And yeah, that's a lot of my work experience has broadly been about supporting people to kind of be the people they want to be, whether that's just within themselves or outwards.
Yeah,
awesome. Cool. Today, we're going to be chatting with Ben about accountability, what that is, what it might look like, and all the other things that come between that and whatever else pops up in this convo. So let's get started. What is accountability, Ben?
Accountability as a concept isn't too complicated. It's more the kind of doing it that some people seem to struggle with. Accountability itself is just being accountable for the impacts that you have on the world, whether that's the things that you do or the things that you say, good or bad. It doesn't just have to be you take accountable for things that you don't like, but it's taking ownership that the things that you do and things that you say and what you put out in the world has an impact on people, and it's important to acknowledge what that impact is.
What could accountability look like in a relationship, intimate or friendship or work colleague? Like, could you give us a few examples of what that might look like?
Sure. So for instance, within relationships, accountability can look like if you're having a conversation with your partner, and initially both of you are happy to be talking about what you're talking about, but then the person you're talking to starts to become uncomfortable with where the conversation is going or what you're saying. It's being able to acknowledge, okay, and now I know that I'm saying something that's making this person uncomfortable, being accountable for that and taking a bit of a step back.
Yeah.
So whether or not you want to engage with that person about what will make this conversation safe and comfortable for you both, where it can be productive, or whether or not you need to take a complete step back and the conversation needs to stop, as an example. Yeah. And that's also in relation to behaviours and things like that. For instance, if you're giving somebody a particular kind of support and you feel like that's going to be the best thing for them, but they're telling you that that's not, being accountable for, okay, well, you thought that would be the best, it's not continuing to do it, just stopping what you're doing and doing something different that is helpful, and also being accountable if that's good too.
So it's kind of like taking responsibility for the things that you do and the impacts it has on other people, whether like you think it's right or wrong, kind of thing. Just like
100%. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people do things generally to cause harm, at least at a conscious level. Like people do what they do, and sometimes they don't know that the things they're doing have an impact. And it's important that once you do know that, or you do acknowledge that that's having a particular impact, whether somebody tells you or you're self-reflecting, that you take accountability for that, to learn from it, to be the person that you want to be, whether that's the safest person or whether you want to be the best person for whoever you're around.
Yeah. So it's kind of that makes sense. So if I had a intent to do good, but I didn't communicate that intent, and I, as a person, should be taking responsibility for my actions, even if my intent was still good.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's a really good summary for it, Sid. I think, in a nutshell, if with any behaviour or anything that we do, you need to understand what it is that's happening, and then if you're able to understand it, then you know whether you need to keep doing it or whether you need to change. And accountability is the mechanism to know whether you need to keep doing something or change. So if you're doing something really helpful and positive, and you take accountability for doing that, then you know you can keep doing it. But if you're just going,
it's not healthy to be like, that sounds like a you problem. I'm doing something good.
100%. Yeah.
And if we say I hurt Sydney, and I'm like, whatever, I'm sorry that you're feeling like that. Is that really taking accountability, or is that almost borderline gaslighting them and being like, well, I'm sorry that you're upset, but what I did is actually nothing to do with that, whereas that's really not taking accountability for what my actions have done.
100%. That's kind of getting into a bit more of the kind of passive-aggressive style of communication where you're not taking on that accountability. Like even within the example that you gave, if your intention wasn't to hurt Sydney, sometimes people don't want to take accountability for things that, if they didn't intend to do something wrong, then it's hard to take accountability because it feels sucky and it doesn't feel good. And so that's when accountability is really hard to do. But it's important not only to improve the relationships that you have with people and to make them healthy and to establish positive relationships, to show people that you're acknowledging their experience and their truth and their reality with kind of what their life is, especially in regards to how you behave towards them. I think that's kind of what brings people close together, is people feeling heard. And if you're saying, well, I'm sorry you feel like that, but I'm awesome, that doesn't really make people feel too good.
No, that totally makes sense. So it sounds like accountability is a big part in a healthy relationship. And last season we talked a little bit about boundaries as well. I guess my question is, how can someone who is actively seeking to be a healthy friend or a healthy boyfriend, girlfriend, how can they, I guess, be more accountable in their relationship?
Don't think it has to be overly complicated. Like a lot of the times it's just a conversation, and it doesn't have to be a conversation about, oh, what are your boundaries, and having them kind of step it all out and you do the same. Like it can just be a conversation about what makes you feel comfortable when we talk or when we're in these situations. Like what do you need from me to make you feel comfortable? What do you need from me to make you feel supported? Is there anything that I've done that has made you uncomfortable that you want me to think about? And saying that without expectation either. Like sometimes people won't be able to put those things to words, but just the act of checking in matters and shows that you care and shows that you want to be a positive person in that other person's life. I think there's a lot of stigma around that can be a really awkward conversation, and people really build it up in their heads that it needs to be a certain way. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. It can just, even if people are thinking about it in the essence of, I want this person to know that I care and I want to be positive in their life and be helpful and help them and have them feel good when I'm around, just asking, what do I do that makes you feel comfortable? Is there anything more that you'd like me to do that makes you feel comfortable? And is there anything that I do that makes you uncomfortable? And taking ownership for that, because you don't know what you don't know, but once you do know, that's your opportunity.
And I guess going off that as well is like, when you get called out on something that you don't know about that's making someone uncomfortable, again, taking accountability for that action and be like, oh, sorry, I didn't realize that made you uncomfortable.
But that can be really hard as well. I just want to point that out. Like it sounds like such a simple thing to do. But we as human beings are very complex, and there's a lot of different things, reasons for the things that we do, and perceptions of ourselves and other people that dictate our reactions to things and the behaviors that we do that sit under the surface that we're not consciously aware of all the time. So being called out for something that you've done that's negative when you didn't think you were doing anything negative, you didn't want to do anything negative, is really hard to take accountability for, because it doesn't feel nice, and nobody wants to feel bad or guilty or feel shame about things. But those are just opportunities to grow. And also the fact that somebody even spoke to you about that is a positive in a sense that they felt comfortable enough to bring it to you. And the least you can do is respect the respect that they clearly have for you, and being able to bring that to your attention, because if you weren't worth it, they wouldn't talk to you about it at all.
And flipping that around as well, if you were being offended as well and you wanted to bring that up with someone, being respectful and taking responsible in, I guess, how you call someone out.
100%. There's a difference between kind of accusing somebody and actually talking with someone. Like if you're saying like, you did this and I don't like it, and obviously it might be a little more volatile than that. But like there's a way to have a self-reflective, open conversation that leads to somewhere and doesn't just kind of put people on the spot and make them feel really bad. Like using a lot of I statements about, this happened the other day, or this happened and I didn't really feel comfortable with it. This is why, or if you're not sure why, you don't have to really explain. Just having that feeling be is enough. And just saying to that person, I was uncomfortable with that, or whatever it might be, and having a conversation with them about that, just letting them know, and then trying to build on that together. And those things bring people closer. That's what connection is built on, is shared understanding and open communication. The more you understand someone, the easier it is to feel like you can go to them and be with them. And whether that's a friend or a partner or a family member or whatever it might be, people will just want to feel comfortable around each other, and being accountable is kind of the pathway to that.
I really liked where you touched on, you're not going to be sitting down and writing every single thing down. You're never going to know every single thing that might be a boundary or something that you want to bring up with your partner. And I really like that, just for people who maybe are in new relationships. You're not going to know every single thing straight away. And I know that myself, even now I'm like, oh, that hit a nerve, let's talk about it. And like, it takes time, and that connection, it's not going to be built straight away. Like Rome wasn't built overnight, so it's going to take time and respectful understanding for each other.
Yeah, and that's what partnerships are. They're partnerships. It's you together. It's not you dumping all your problems on one person or them doing it to you. Like you talk about what you feel and your perspective, and when things are going well and when things are going badly, and try to take accountability as much as you can. And you won't get it right all the time, because nobody does and no one's perfect, but working together to be the best versions of yourselves and to be the best couple you can be. And if things work out, they work out. And if they don't, then they don't. Yeah. But all you can do is try and put your best foot forward in that sense.
Yeah. Building off what you've just finished on, if we're talking about friendships or relationships and both parties trying, when does it cross over, or where do we draw the line to when it becomes unhealthy or disrespectful, and how can someone go about putting in a boundary and be like, actually, let's not continue this?
What if you have a valuable friendship and you guys are both trying, but things are just getting a little bit too hard for both
too heated.
Yeah. To kind of answer the first part of that question, as far as when things get unhealthy and when they don't get unhealthy, there's no template for that. Yeah. Like, everybody's different. Everybody's got their own boundaries about what they will and won't take. And that's different for a variety of reasons. But at the essence of it, people know when they feel like they're being taken advantage of and they feel like people aren't listening to them. And that's kind of the thing that prompts people to want to have that change. But as far as communicating it, and communicating when you know, and knowing when to kind of stop communicating, I guess there's only so much that you can do. You can't control how people listen to you or whether they listen to you. You can only do the best you can to clearly communicate how you're feeling and what you want and what you're unhappy with or what you are happy with. And that can be really hard sometimes. And people won't do it perfectly all the time. But if somebody, at the bottom line of it is, if you are putting in a lot of effort to explain to somebody what you're feeling and how you're feeling it, and you don't really feel like they're taking that, respecting the effort at the very least, or really listening properly or understanding the way that you need to, then that's just the way things are sometimes. But that doesn't mean you need to accept it. Like, you want people in your life that respect you and build you up and make you feel heard. And if you have people in your life that aren't making you feel like that when you're putting in a lot of effort, sometimes that just means it's time to kind of move on. Like, not everybody can be what people need them to be, or everybody has different capacities to do different things. But you kind of need to look out for what's best for you. You don't really owe anything to anybody but yourself, and make sure that you're the happiest you are in your life and the most built up you can be. And you want people around you who do the same for you. So and that's just how friendships go sometimes as well. Like, sometimes friendships can be really positive. Things happen in people's lives for whatever reason, and things change and things get better sometimes. But that means sometimes you might need to take a step back from a friend and let them know that at the moment you're not feeling particularly respected and heard, and it isn't making you feel good in your life. And then if you want to reconnect later on, and that's possible, by all means. But if not, like, you're the best judge of what is comfortable and happy and safe for you.
As long as you're treating all that interaction with respect and taking accountable, and I think that's the way to go about it.
Yeah, like if people don't listen, like, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't like you or they don't care off the bat. Like, people might be trying, but they might also struggle to really understand what you're saying. They might be processing, or they might fundamentally disagree with what you're saying. And that's okay. They don't have to think that, but it's up to each and every one of us to have people in our life that fill our cup and build us up. And not everybody will be that, and we won't always make the best decision for who those people are going to be in our lives, but we can only do the best of what we've got, and read the situation that as we see it, and make the safest decisions for ourselves with what we have.
Yeah, cool. We wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and your knowledge and your words, and we are super excited to close off episode 2, and we'll see you for episode 3.